I didn't discover the debt all at once. It came in pieces, like weather changes you don't notice until you're soaked. A letter from a bank I'd never used, a credit alert at midnight, a polite voicemail asking when I planned to make my minimum payment. Each time I assumed there had been a mistake. I was careful. I paid on time. I kept my life small and orderly. By the time I understood what was happening, the number had weight. $59,000. Not medical bills, not a bad decision, just my name neatly printed on accounts I'd never opened. When I confronted my sister, she didn't deny it. She said it like it was already old news. She'd been struggling. She'd meant to pay it back. She needed time. Our father sat beside her, arms crossed, face set in that familiar expression he used when he'd already decided how a situation should end. "Let it go," he said. "She's your sister." It wasn't said harshly that made it worse. It was the tone he used when telling a child not to make a fuss in public, as if the problem wasn't the theft, but the noise it might create. I tried to explain what the debt meant. Interest, years, the way it would follow me into every future decision. My father nodded in the patient way people do when they're waiting for you to stop talking. "Family doesn't do this to each other," he said, meaning I shouldn't involve anyone else. For weeks, I didn't sleep properly. Every option felt like a loss. If I stayed silent, I would carry something that wasn't mine. If I spoke up, I would become the person who broke the family. I filed the police report on a Tuesday morning. The officer didn't react the way I expected. No shock, no sympathy, just questions, careful and methodical, as if this were a known shape of thing. Walking back to my car, I felt lighter and lonelier at the same time. My parents stopped calling after that. When they did speak to me, it was clipped, logistical. They said I'd forced their hand, that I'd made it public. The court date came months later. By then, I had learned to speak about the situation without shaking. I answered questions, I brought documents, I didn't look at my sister. When my parents took the stand, I finally understood what it meant to be underestimated. They spoke confidently, almost rehearsed. They framed it as a misunderstanding, a private family matter that had been escalated unnecessarily. My father talked about intention, about forgiveness, about how mistakes shouldn't define a person's life. I kept my eyes on the table. The judge listened without interruption. She didn't frown, she didn't react. When my father finished, she leaned forward slightly, as if adjusting her posture rather than shifting the room. She asked one question. "Sir," she said, "when you discovered these accounts were opened without consent, did you advise your daughter to report the identity theft to protect herself from further liability?" It was a simple question, clean, no accusation built into it. My father opened his mouth, then stopped. I watched his certainty drain, replaced by calculation. He glanced toward my sister, then back to the judge. He tried to answer around it, talked about trust, about resolving things internally, but the question waited unmoved. "No," he finally said. The silence that followed wasn't dramatic. It was procedural, the kind of pause that happens when a fact settles into place and no one can shift it. From that point on, the room felt different. Not hostile, just aligned. Responsibility was no longer abstract. It had a direction. The ruling didn't feel like victory. It felt like gravity. The debt was assigned where it belonged. My name was released from it. The judge's tone never changed. She didn't scold anyone. She didn't look at me for approval. Outside the courtroom, my parents didn't approach me. My sister cried quietly, her lawyer speaking in low tones beside her. I stood alone, holding paperwork that proved what I'd known all along. In the months after, my credit slowly recovered. So did my breathing. The family didn't. My father sent one message. It wasn't an apology. It said he hoped one day I'd understand why he'd tried to keep things together. I read it once and didn't respond. I don't feel proud when I think about what happened. I feel steadier, like someone who stopped carrying a box that was never theirs and is still getting used to having their hands free. Some losses are loud. This one is quiet, persistent. I chose myself, and the cost of that choice still echoes, but the debt no longer does.